Welcome to What's Trending with Tire Review, presented by Apex 2022. I'm Maddie Weiner, and today on the podcast, we're joined by Bruce Basankin, Vice President of Yokohama Off-Highway Tires. Bruce, welcome to the show.
Hey, Maddie, thank you so much, and glad to be here. Hope you're having a good afternoon.
Yes, no, and same to you. And I'm really excited to talk to you today because you've been noticing a shift toward smaller, compact equipment in the construction market. Um, I was wondering, from your point of view, what factors are influencing this shift?
You know, Maddie, this is something that we see, particularly in the United States and North America, maybe a little bit of movement over the last number of years. It kind of, if you go backwards a bit and have been to many of the TIA off the road meetings, we tend to talk much more about the larger equipment, which is great. And it's actually a backbone of the heavy industry in the United States and North America, with the large haul trucks, loaders, things of that nature. But when it comes to the day-to-day activities, we've seen a lot more of some of the smaller equipment, the smaller loaders, the compact loaders, the telehandlers, things of this nature, because we've become much more focused on the building and rebuilding of a lot of things. Um, one of the things just anecdotally that you can do when you go past, you're seeing now a lot of bridges under construction or rebuilding, and most of the equipment that you're seeing there is not the heavy duty, very large equipment that's used for earth moving. We're seeing a lot of the stuff that's actually helping the people, whether it's a man lift, some things like that, being put things into position. And that, we talk in the trucking industry about that last mile, right?
Right.
It's somewhat the same in building. It's the last few steps on getting it there and actually building it. I try and kind of put that in a correlation.
Yeah,
So
that's interesting.
yeah, we've kind of seen a trend towards that. I'm not saying it's taking away from any of the large equipment, but the smaller equipment's becoming very, very important. It's a level of productivity that our everyday workers are getting to. Plus, you're going to see it. Just this past weekend, we had so much snow, throughout most of the eastern coast. What's going to move that off the streets? You've got your motor graders, you've got your small loaders, things of that nature. So, and every municipality has some kind of smaller equipment, and those are real critical to our day-to-day living.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, what you were saying, kind of making that comparison to the last mile delivery segment, very interesting. And it kind of made things click too. It was like, oh yeah, like of course, finishing the job. And I've seen those, as you said, with the snow coming down so uh, horribly, in the eastern US. I have seen some of those, smaller pieces of equipment, like you're
Yeah,
talking
and
about.
yeah, exactly. And we've seen a lot of things over the last number of years, and another slight comparison. If you looked in Europe, a lot
Hmm.
of the building that was going down, the first thing you had to do was tear something down because the towns, the villages, things of that nature were already built up. We're starting to see a lot more of that in the United States, where we've got cities that are built up and we have to tear them down or tear pieces of them down to rebuild on that same spot. We've expanded out a lot and we can still expand some more in different areas of the country. But when you have a populous city, things of that nature, you're going to have to do that demolition. Some of that's going to involve the heavy duty. But then again, as you get to that last little bit, the big pieces of equipment aren't going to be ideally suited. Plus, you're in a very small area that you have to work. We're not talking about the vast expanse of a mine site or a quarry. We're into, less than a city block or the footprint of a building sometimes.
Yeah, that's so fascinating. Very interesting. And I'm gonna be keeping an eye out for these pieces of equipment as I'm driving down the street. So very cool.
And I apologize for talking over you, but
No, no.
the other piece with that is, let's look at where we are today in the labor market. We have to we're hiring a lot of people. First of all, we want to hire a lot of people. Number
Mhm.
one issue, I think, throughout most of industry today is getting the right people. But it's also, in most cases, a little bit easier and less intimidating to get someone to learn about how to use a smaller piece of equipment. And particularly if it's going to help them out in that day to day productivity aspect.
That's true. Yeah, that is a good point. It's a little bit, like you said, less intimidating, a little bit more of an entry level sort of comfort with that.
Exactly.
Interesting. Okay. So, I wanted to delve in to how this trend kind of will uh, play with the infrastructure bill that was just passed last year. 1.2 trillion infrastructure bill. Uh, it promises something like 110 billion toward bridges and road improvements. Obviously, this sounds like, major dollars for the construction industry and in turn the tire industry. So from your perspective, um, how will this bill and then, the trend of, smaller compact equipment probably doing some of these jobs impact the tire industry and tire dealers?
Well, I see it being they just mesh together almost perfectly. When we've talked about infrastructure bills in the past, again, it's very easy for us to stay highly focused on the large pieces of equipment. And we, by the way, we do. There's no de-emphasis, but it's this infrastructure that we have to get to. And as I said, most of that's taken over. If you look at the bill itself
Hmm.
and the details, we're talking about paving new roads or repaving, rebuilding bridges, maintenance type items. These are the things that will require smaller pieces of equipment. And by the way, you look at many of the major machine manufacturers, obviously they're coming out with new pieces of equipment. They're really rolling out a lot of things. And it spills over somewhat into the agricultural segment. We do that. Maybe not part of the infrastructure bill, but let's look at what the biggest boom in the agricultural market is, and that's in the compact tractors and small loaders that go to the hobby farmers, those that stay on the smaller side of things. I think those are some of the top selling tractors in the market today.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah. I guess I'm curious too, like how will this impact the tire industry, in terms of sizing, in terms of, from Yokohama's perspective too, like creating tires for different applications? Has there been like a shift in product strategy or a slight tweak? Because obviously you said, you still have that big earth moving equipment out there that, needs attention and care and maintenance as well.
Yeah, a lot of the things that we're seeing in the tire industry is doing just that, Maddie, is that we've got a lot of things that are moving uh, quite rapidly, and particularly in Yokohama. I think you've seen over the last number of years, Yokohama and the Alliance Tire Group, Yokohama purchased Alliance Tire Group.
Right.
What that did, that put in an entire portfolio of products that Yokohama didn't have, which were tending to be on that smaller side, catering to a lot of that market. And it made our product offering much greater. And then at the same time, we've been able to concentrate our capital building projects and things like that so that we can make more tires. What you hit on at the very beginning is exactly true. We're going to be producing more product. We're going to be both manufacturing, but before that, development, and spending a lot of time on those things to get them right and to go forward. Um, so we've got a lot of opportunities ahead of us. It does change somewhat of the landscape. Like I said, I want to make sure that we're not putting that there's a de-emphasis on any of the large equipment whatsoever. We've got plenty of development and manufacturing going on in that side of the house. We want to make sure those are well maintained. But at the same time, we've got some of these other pockets that are growing in activity and growing in stature as a business itself, and we're doing everything we can to stay on top of those.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And I'm curious if you can go into maybe some detail about, you mentioned compact tractors as part of like sort of the ag sector, but any other compact machines that you feel or that you're seeing, your team is seeing that dealers need to be ready to service, in terms of tire maintenance, any certain machines that are, I guess, coming to the forefront with more compact equipment.
Well, I'm going to tell you a couple of things that we do see. First of all, it's as I said, and we're going to kind of delve down to that municipality level. In some of
Mhm.
our classic OTR off the road machines, you're going to see the small wheel loaders, high importance. Almost everybody has those. Now, even your landscape companies have smaller loaders. Lots, by the way, lots of those small loader attachments for the tractors, things of that nature. The motor graders, again, we've seen the key importance of those used pretty much across a broad section of all industry across the United States. Maintenance, road maintenance in particular, those are some on the smaller side. And then, of course, paving equipment. Those are things that we really want to take a look at. And one thing I didn't really mention a little bit earlier, and I don't want to say they're small machines, I would call them more medium. But let's look at the last 1.5 years. What has been one of the most critical components that everyone talks about? It's shipping
Oh yeah.
and it's things coming into the ports. And guess what? All of those containers, I would say most of those containers have to be offloaded. They're put on reach stackers, port handling equipment, trolleys that go on side there. Now, obviously, those ports are typically held around the country on the on the borders where there's water. But we've seen a lot of increase over the last few years of what they call inland ports, where the equipment offloads from the ship, then comes by rail to an interior, quote unquote, port, and then gets put on trucks to go across the country. This is the lifeblood of America right now, is in the transportation. And those are critical. And by the way, that's one area that we really excel in. And we've got a lot of product, a lot of work with the customers, our dealers and customers on that, and trying to keep everybody moving 24/7. We've got to get through some of these crises, and doing so, we can't have anything down just because of a tire.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And yeah, port tires are so important. I was talking to I remember when I first started in the tire industry, I think I was talking to Kevin Rowling from TIA, and he
Hmm.
got so excited. He was like, "You're gonna learn. You don't understand. Like everything runs on our industry. Everything runs on tires." Just like it's exciting to see, but it's also such like a big responsibility on behalf of manufacturers and dealers. To match those applications and get it right and stuff like that. So
Well, it is. You said it correctly. It's a big responsibility on all of us to, one, do things right, but do them safely. Let's not forget that anytime we work with a tire, it's a pressure vessel.
right.
So the number one thing that we want to do is do it safely, do it the right way the first time. That goes into our development, it goes into our manufacture, and it goes into how we want to work with the dealers and our end users.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Very interesting stuff. Well, Bruce, I have one last question for you. I wanted to know for OTR tire dealers, the trend toward smaller equipment, really may affect the types of tires they need to keep in stock. So what would you tell a tire dealer to get them ready for the number one, the impacts of the infrastructure bill that what that would mean for their business, and number two, the compact equipment that needs service.
Well, Maddie, the very first thing that they want to look at is they just need to look outside, right? And see who their customer base is and what they're serving,
Hmm.
and who they're serving. And I would be willing to bet that right now their customer base is expanding. They've got a lot more people coming to them saying, "Hey, can you get me this? Can you get me that? Can you help me in the service area of this and that?" That's the first thing everybody always says. Look outside your window. What's your business? Second, with that, we talked a little bit about shipping, things of that nature. Let's just be honest. The better forecast that anyone can do, both business wise in terms of dollars, but also in what you're going to need, is going to be extremely helpful. Quite frankly, I think that's one of the biggest single areas that we can all work on together is having that forward vision. Because the reality, most of us are looking at what are the next 3 to 5 months of business looking like and trying to stock according to that. We look at some things right now, and it's a full chain. It goes from your customer, from the end customer who's using the product, to the dealer who's selling and servicing, to the manufacturer. And these are the things we want to look at and actually get a lot better at. And we have, by the
Mhm.
way. We had I've been on calls all this year, and that's the number one focus on how are we going to get better at this, and how do we drive our future-looking forecast and our capabilities as a manufacturer to get things here quicker and more efficiently, and put them in the right people's hands.
Yeah, very interesting, like predictive analysis of the market, I guess is what.
Exactly.
Okay. Gotcha. Very interesting. Well, Bruce, I know we will continue to follow this trend and definitely check in with you to see what you're seeing. But I do want to tell you thanks so much for being on the podcast today. I so appreciate your expertise on this and sharing your thoughts on this and the trends in the industry, excuse me, in the industry with our readers.
Okay, well, very good, Maddie. I really appreciate the time, and again, everybody's got to work together on this, and we'll get through everything.
For sure. Yes. Thank you.